if you know, you know.
It's TCA in stereo.
From the city to the lake, we make a noise.
It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. Let's go. It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. Let's go. Let's go.
Welcome inside another edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast for our latest edition of the TCA Summer Sessions. Matt Robinson along with you as always, going to be joined today by our friend Mike Commito, hockey historian and fellow damaged Toronto Maple Leaf fan, to take a look at what happened. Mitch is gone. Perhaps the best part of their contending window is gone. We'll get into all of it. Happy you made a little time for us here today. Nothing like, well, I was going to say reminiscing over some scar tissue. For some of you, you may sit back and celebrate this and enjoy it. A lot of you, obviously, based in the nation's capital, perhaps, will enjoy hearing a couple of guys relive some trauma. But it is mid-August, and what better time to talk about some damaged Toronto hockey memories. We are on social media at Tall Can Audio. You can register your complaints or your glee there, and make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you're hearing us right now. I did want to mention next week a little bit of a switcheroo on the TCA Summer Sessions. I don't get to use that word often enough. As you've noticed, and as has basically been the case for quite a while now, the Monday show is always kind of the news talk show. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, we'll sort of kick around on the Monday. And then during the middle of the week, we have a guest on, and we may get to whatever is newsy or topical, or we may just dive into all kinds of different things about themselves or their path or whatever the hell it is that Joshua O'Connor and I did last week. And that always happens midweek. We're going to flip that next week, and it's just availability of the guests and how this is all going to shake loose. So on Monday, you're getting another edition of the TCA Summer Sessions instead of the newsy show. And that will be with the voice of the Ottawa Senators, Dean Brown. Dean is always good enough to make a little time for us throughout the summer to do kind of a summer check-in on the state of the Sens and what he's got an eye on around the franchise as we head into the home stretch here. Training camps are less than a month away. You'll start to see footage from some of these captain skates here actually within just a couple of weeks. So hockey's not that far off. So Dean Brown will help me do that on Monday. And then we'll do the newsy thing later in the week with Steve Bunda next week. So that's the way that's all going to play out. Just wanted to give you a heads up that, things will be a little bit different next week as we kind of come down the home stretch here of the summer vacation that I am enjoying. And it's kind of fun that we'll go back to back here with some Leafs talk today and some Sens talk on Monday. So you all know what's up with that. And if there is anything big enough, anything newsy enough, I can always check back in for a little solo show like we did over the weekend. If you missed that, go back and check it out. On Friday, it was also heavy on Sens Talk on Friday night. It's up now at tallcanaudio.com or on whatever app you're hearing me on. So go back and give that a listen if you missed it. With all of that out of the way, though, let's just get right into it. We're talking Leafs trauma and what the hell went wrong with the Mitch Marner era in Toronto with hockey historian Mike Commito. As promised, we bring him in, our friend Mike Commito, author of the Hockey 365 series, plus Leafs 365, Habs 365, and the stomach-churning title, The Impending Bruins 365, coming this fall. Mike Commito, how's it going, sir?
It's going well. Thanks for having me, Matt.
I appreciate you coming back. I was looking for the right person to have this conversation with me. Someone like yourself who has the ability to kind of view things in a historical lens, but also who has ridden the roller coaster, has been through the emotional trauma here as we look back at the last, I don't know if you want to call it an era, maybe we'll get into that, of Toronto Maple Leafs hockey and a bit of a turning of the page right now. But you always, you know where we start, Mike. Over the course of the summer, have you had a chance to try anything new and local right there in the near north?
I think I hope that I didn't say the same answer last time we talked last summer, but we always spent some time at our friend's cottage in Quebec, and he's my buddy switched me onto this beer, a brewery called Archibald or Archibald. I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but they've got this great lineup of cans of different. Most of them are women, and they almost kind of have like a bit of a pinup vibe that you'd see on an airplane in the Second World War.
Oh yeah,
and they've got these great names. Like one is Bellemare, which means mother-in-law, and it's a West Coast IPA, and Beaupire it's French for father-in-law, and I think that one's an American lager. And after spending a few days at their camp last year, I bought a bunch to come home with me, and then we went there again this summer, and so I was drinking that. But I'm now all out of Archibald beer, so I'm looking for something else to drink locally now. Again, I'm a sucker for a cold Peroni on a hot day, which is not necessarily a local beer, but they do in a pinch.
Sure.
But here in Sudbury, 46 North is a great brewery. It's just got to get out there and stock up for the coming weeks.
Well, I know I've been trying a couple of things here lately from the Sleeping Giant Brewery in Thunder Bay, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump from you in that greater Sudbury, Thunder Bay area, right? So
yeah. Just that small, 11-hour expansive journey.
I wanted to shout out our friends over at the Lake of Bays Brewing Company in Muskoka, and I'm finally getting into something here that a friend of ours, a friend of the show, her name's Angela. She's been on a bunch of times, and she dropped off this 15th anniversary pack for me. The brewery celebrating that this year. It's been an interesting year for our friends of the show. We've had I guess it was about last fall, our friends over at Whippersnapper celebrated 10 years. And then this winter, our friends at the Nita Beer Company celebrated 10 years. Then in May, we celebrated 10 years. And Lake of Bay is out in front of all of us at 15 years. So it's a limited edition 15th anniversary pack. This one's called the Bow Echo. It's a hazy IPA that I'm going to crack into here. 5.6%. You won't mind. I know you're still at the office, but I'm on vacation.
You, by all means. I may just have to go pick up one of those packs on the way home. I do love a good Lake of Bay, so that's, I think, all I needed to push me in that direction.
Yeah, limited edition.
Doesn't take much.
Highly recommend. They make really nice stuff. I should say, maybe before we dive right into this, I'm curious, what's your summer been like, Mike? Have you managed to find any kind of vacation time? You keeping busy? What's it looked like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working, but I've had some time off here and there, and not necessarily a lot of time off in blocks, but like the odd long weekend here, the odd few days there. Just been enjoying the weather here in Sudbury with family. And you know what, this summer's been a little bit different for me because I haven't been writing a book. So it's been different, but it's also been very nice that my evenings are my own. My weekends are my own. I'm not under the gun to keep writing. Bruins 365, that stomach churning title that you alluded to earlier is the third book in 3 years. And so last year when, we were right at on the cusp of launching another stomach churner with Habs 365. I was writing Bruins 365 in the background. And this year when I finished Bruins 365, that was it. I had nothing else kind of in the hopper. And so I've just been, enjoying the evenings, reading a lot. I've attempted to start playing pickleball this summer, which I guess makes me really old or really lame. I'll take either or, but no, it's been a nice, relaxing summer. Looking forward to, the start of the new year. The kids go back to school. They start more of their activities. So obviously it's going to get a little bit crazier. But still, it's a fun time. And especially here at the college, to see our students come back to campus and really kind of bring that buzz back to the atmosphere here.
This probably won't be the last time we hear the name the Bruins throughout this conversation, and we'll have you back when the book drops. But give us the actual release date for the book.
Yeah, so it's October 21st. So we're just 2 months away as of tomorrow. So it's getting closer. I think I actually have a video in my inbox somewhere that I got today from the publisher of it being printed. So
nice.
It's going through the production process as we speak, and then it'll be in the warehouse, and I guess in a couple weeks. So it's coming soon. So I should probably have a copy before that date, but the official date is October 21st.
Just the term inbox makes me cringe right now, Mike. I've been here at the cottage for a week or so. I got another week or so left, and I've started taking advantage of that mark as read button just because watching the numbers go up on the text and the email while I'm sitting here not answering people was making me anxious, but it's not really helping. Like, I'm not seeing the number, but I still know it's there, right? I know it's happening, and it's going to have to be dealt with on that Tuesday after Labor Day, so...
whenever I go, I love just like removing the app from your home screen,
right?
And then you don't see it. And then the other thing, when we go to our friend's camp that I mentioned earlier, they have no cell service or internet out there, so it's beautiful because your phone becomes a brick for the weekend. You use it to take pictures, but it's really not much useful for anything beyond that. So.
That
really
is perfect. I
Yeah.
am still too much addicted to some of the social stuff, especially around the Blue Jays right now. I'm all in on that. So I don't put it down completely, but I do try and detach from a lot of messages and emails and things like that. But I digress. We should dive in here. And I thought it was an interesting time to have this conversation. I don't know how grandiose the pronouncement needs to be of a new era or anything like that. But it does feel like over the last couple of years, they've replaced the general manager, they've replaced the coach, they have obviously turned over most of the blue line, the goaltending tandem. Now Marner has moved on, and John Tavares' big contract has, obviously expired, and they've re-upped him. But we're heading into what feels like, if not a new era, a new chapter, if nothing else. And I just kind of wanted to zoom out and get your take on whether this was ever going to work, whether, something conspired against them, how you view this last kind of time period since opening night of the 2016-17 season, where all these guys arrive, right? Hyman is in the lineup, Connor Brown is in the lineup, Marner and Matthews and Nylander are all there, and it feels like we're on the cusp of something. As Sens fans who listen to this show will be screaming right now, I should point out the Leafs did lose that game, but Austin Matthews...
They love to remind you of that every single time.
You can't mention the 4-goal debut without some Sens fans shouting at me that they lost that game. I'm curious, going into that season, did it feel to you like we were about to start something new? Did you feel like it was going to take longer than it did for them to become competitive? How sold were you on the actual guys that were coming up and starting? Like, just somewhere around the beginning of this time period, how confident or optimistic were you?
I think optimistic is probably a better feeling for me than confident. I think ultimately when the team won the draft lottery in 2016, like, I was truly elated that night because, like, I knew based on everything that I was reading and hearing that Austin Matthews was going to be that generational player up the middle that we needed. And so, like, I was super excited about that. But I think going into the season, I was realistic that this was still a team like in the rebuild. And I think probably more towards the end of that rebuild. So I don't think I had really high expectations. I think ultimately that first game when, he scored 4 goals, like, kind of turned my, my perspective on its head. And I was like, holy, this is even better than I thought it would be. But ultimately, like, when they got to the playoffs that year, like against Washington, like, I feel like that was like bonus hockey, right?
Sure.
Like, I don't think, in my mind anyway, that like I had expected them to get to the playoffs that year. And so for them to play Washington, get that experience for that new young core that was coming up, like, that was invaluable in my mind, but I didn't necessarily expect it. And so obviously we know how the outcome of that series went. But I think for fans of the time, at least with me, it was like, well, whatever, this is just great experience. I'd never thought that they would, beat Washington in the first round. So that's fine. And then, the next year you start to think, okay, they got to the playoffs.
It's funny that it's Washington, because Montreal, I think Montreal fans would tell you they just did the same thing, right? That they weren't expecting to get there, and then they did, and it's all gravy. And you lose to the President's or the Eastern Conference, champion or leading, not the playoff champion, but the leading point-getting team in the Eastern Conference. And it's funny that it's the Caps again, but it's funny that the Habs probably just are came out of last year thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah. And for me, and then after that, like, kind of building on that, like, the next year, those expectations go up incrementally. But I think for me, like, the I guess the changing of the guard or the new era, however we want to term it, was like with the Tavares signing. in 2018. And like, I truly was like, that was a monumental day for me as a Leafs fan. I remember going outside and I attempted to do a video where I chugged 2 beer at the same time and I didn't succeed. And so the video did not go up completely. And I caught a lot of strays from people who were like, he didn't even finish the beers. And admittedly, I didn't finish the beers because I had never chugged 2 bottles of beer at the same time. I was kind of trying to do the TJ Oshie move that he had done infamously during the Stanley Cup celebrations that year. I think I had pulled the shirt over my face and even did it that way, which was a mistake. but all that to say, like, that's how excited I was that this is a man who, you know, at that point in my life was like, I have like a full-time job at the college down the road, and I was willingly posting videos of me trying to double chug. So like, that's how excited I was. I ended up actually getting like a couple newspapers reach out to me to ask me like what that meant to me as a Leafs fan. And it truly at the time felt like a new era, because this was like the first, you know, free agent in their prime that I can remember coming to Toronto, like in picking Toronto, not at the end of their career.
Well, we had just done the Stamkos, right? And he came, got the presentation, went, nah, I'm going back to Tampa, right? Like,
So
Brad
like,
Richards a couple years earlier, same thing. Like, the Leafs were always trying to be in on these guys and just weren't there. Like,
there was always these false starts, or you get these guys like at the end of their career, which was nice, but ultimately it's not the same as getting a player in their prime. And so for me, that just kind of felt like, all right, now we've got somebody like Tavares coming in, new captain, we've got this young core coming up. And I think that's when the expectations really started to change for me. And then as far as like, you know, how do we kind of wrap our minds around what happened? Like,
well, let's stay here in the early days for a moment, like, because I'm with you here on the Tavares thing. It's Canada Day, so I was at our family cottage at the time, and I remember before seeing it on free agency or on, you know, free agent frenzy or whatever, I'd seen it on Twitter, and I was the same as you, man, just elated. Like, this guy may have been at the time my favorite player in the NHL. I grew up in Oshawa, right? I had watched him with the Generals, and I was curious, you know, to keep an eye on him through the Islanders. And I don't know that I ever really thought he would come home to Toronto. And when it happened, I wasn't trying to double fist the beers, surprisingly enough, but I was out at the end of the dock talking to people who were boating by, like, giving out the news, right? Like, he's coming. We knew a bunch of people on the lake, and so that was wild. But like, even just to stay in that first year for a minute, it was such a fun year. Like, you referenced the Washington series and how they got a pass on it, as they should have, right? They went 6 games, 5 of them were in overtime against a really, really good Washington team at the time. And I don't remember anybody being upset about that. But like, I was in Ottawa the night that the Austin Matthews thing happened. I was not at the game, but I was in a bar for opening night with, you know, not dissimilar to the arena, half Leafs, half Sens fans, and watching this thing happen, and people just indignant, like, am I really seeing this? I remember Roberto Luongo tweeting at the time, right after the game, because it's opening night, everybody's watching, and James Reimer at the time was his backup, and he said, he tweeted, I think I'll let Reimer take the starts in Toronto this year. And I went to, if you remember that year, they had the Centennial Classic, an outdoor game at BMO, and I went to that with my cousin and with his wife, and it just, everything about it, they win that in overtime. Austin Matthews scores. He gets to 40 goals late in the season. They end up beating Pittsburgh in game 81 on a ridiculous save. Curtis McElhaney on Sidney Crosby is the one that gets them in. It's... everything about it was just so much fun, and I don't know how good I thought they were going to be, but it couldn't have started out any better. And, you know, by the time Tavares starts, we are 1 loss to Boston into this, but you went 7 with the champs, or they weren't the champs. I don't know why I said that. It made make myself feel better a little bit, but you went 7 against the team that had sort of lived in your head since 2013, but this was with the new, young, up-and-coming group. Like, we'll get them later, which would, you know, later remains to be seen. It felt like, holy crap, like, look what you have let us create by being bad for as long as we were. And with Morgan Riley is going to continue to get better, and Marner and Nylander and Matthews and Hyman and Connor Brown, and everything was just on the up and come. You still got Kadri kicking around, and Bozak is at your third line center all of a sudden, and it just, man, it felt like okay, good things ahead. And you lose to Boston in 2018. Like I said, you were the underdog there. And it's still heartbreaking because it's in 7 games. But okay, 2019, I don't remember them being considered quite as much of an underdog because now you do have Tavares on your side.
Yeah.
It was more of a saw-off, and you end up losing that one. And this is where, to me, it starts to go wrong a little bit. It starts to feel wrong. And we are only 1 year into the Tavares thing. But I remember feeling like, I wonder if now's the time that I started making excuses for them or if I was being reasonable. Because they lose in 2019. In 2020, they decide they're not going to do anything at the deadline because they lose to David Ayres, a big part of this this era, this chapter. And Kyle Dubas says, to hell with it. Like, this team hasn't earned reinforcements. I'm not going to do anything. And it doesn't matter because within a week or two, the season is shut down. And they lose to Columbus in the play-in, and it felt like they should have won that, but a lot of people don't remember that the Leafs and the Blue Jackets were actually tied in the standings when the season shut down. I don't know if that's me coping, right, or whatever. But I don't take very seriously almost anything that happened in that bubble, right? Like, I've got an asterisk beside almost all of it. It's not just the Leafs. And so in that one, I was almost like, well, it was crazy. It was best of 5. But that feels, in hindsight, like me trying to pull the wool over my own eyes a little bit. It's not until the 21 series against Montreal for me, and they lose that one. And you're like, yeah, fine, Tavares was hurt, but like, you're up 3-1.
Yeah.
And oh man, they dominated that one overtime and almost won it there, but it didn't happen. And to me, that's, for me, where I was like, okay, the check engine light is blinking. Did you make it that far, or were you, after Columbus or after the second Boston go, starting to already question them a little bit?
I think I'm with you that was kind of like the turning point for me, because like, and I think also I'm maybe also kind of mixing my emotions then with like how I feel about the team now and like how good those Boston teams were in those, you know, and how different, like the division is still in a very competitive division, right? So like you're having to beat like 2 really good teams right off the hop just to get to the conference final. And I mean, there's no excuse. Like, ultimately, a team eventually has to overcome some of those demons and get over that hump at some point. But I think, again, I don't want to use the word excuse, but like, you looking back, it's like, you know, they ran into a very good team, a team in 2019 that went to the Stanley Cup final. And, you know, should they have won? It's tough to say. But like, for me, it's like those to me seem more like acceptable losses as much as like anything is an acceptable loss. And then, you know, 2020, again, I'm with you there. Like, that was like, the world was turned upside down. Like, I don't think you can use like the same yardstick we'd used in previous years to like kind of evaluate what the heck that was with the, you know, best of 5 bubble hockey. You know, we don't know if the world is ending or not. This is all very new to everybody. So like, I'm willing to give them a pass for that year, but it's the 2021 year was for my, that was the one for me that kind of was like, oh God, I don't know where this is going now. This is something that should have been locked up, because I even remember my father-in-law, who's a Habs fan, like you know, the team was, you know, the Leafs were up 3-1 and he's like, well, I guess the series is over. And I'm like, well, you're not a Leafs fan. This is far from over, my friend. And I remember like, he's, you know, we would watch a couple games here and there, but I'm like, I do not want to watch any games with you from here on out, because like, I'm going to be upset if the Habs win. And I don't want you to see me like in my full Leaf fan mode. So like, and I was right. I watched Game 7 like alone in my basement, and that was the most mad I've been for any Leafs loss as far as I can remember. Like, I was upset. Like, I was mad. I was upset. Because then, like, in the years that fall, like, you know, you're upset when they lose, but like, I was never mad. Right. Like, when they didn't get past Tampa, you're like, ugh, you know, it is what it is, or not is what it is, because I was still not happy about it. But like, I didn't have the anger.
It's like something got broken in us in that Montreal series. Yeah.
So like, it was just kind of like, you know, the apathy sets in later. But like, that Montreal one, like, kind of broke me, where I was very angry. I was very upset. And then obviously I came around and I, you know, got into it again for the following season. But it's just, for me, that's probably where you start to kind of do your postmortem and say, something's not right here. And I don't know what it is, because we have all the talent, we have all the firepower, but clearly, something is amiss. And then, you lose to Tampa the following year. And again,
well, it's funny. And when you start talking about those two series, now the Tampa series, like that next year in 22, I've spoken to a lot of people who think Toronto was the better team in 22 and lost, and Tampa was the better team in 23 and they lost when we finally got by them. Like, sometimes hockey's a little strange, and so even if like it starts to melt your brain a little to figure out, are they just, you brought up the division a while ago, and it comes off as a little bit of sour grapes or a little bit of coke, but it's real. This has been the best division in the league for a while, with the Bruins and the Lightning, and all of a sudden the Panthers decide to go world beater out of nowhere and arrive on the scene. It's sort of odd, and you kind of start to, is this team just, a really good team that isn't quite as good as some of these other teams in the division, or is there something fundamentally broken with the way this team is built, or the way these players react to each other, or something? And it took a little while. Like, I also remember coming out of that Montreal series, as pissed as I was, much like yourself, going, let's not go crazy here, right? Like, this is the best group of talent we've had in a long time. Don't go too far in blowing it up or whatever, because sometimes it just takes time. I remember trying to tell myself, remember how long it took the Blues, remember how long it took the Capitals, right? Like, you tweak around the edges, but you allow the core to keep going and just stay in the mix for as long as possible. But as we sit here now, a lot of it feels, in hindsight, like coping a little bit, like trying to talk yourself into it. And I don't know. The other thing we should point out at this point is the Leafs, while not promised anything, were certainly hit perhaps harder than anyone in the league by when the cap froze. Yeah. They had locked in all their guys, and all of a sudden, bang, we're not moving the cap anymore. And you needed that. You were banking on that. And again, to other fan bases, I've had this conversation. Like, I know that for sure sounds like sour grapes, but that's real, because the cap didn't start to move again until all those contracts were coming up, and all of a sudden Willie's like, oh good, I see we got some room here. I'd like 11, and Matthews would like 13, and Marner would like to get a significant bump. So the Leafs were almost uniquely, like, everyone was affected by it, but I don't know that it hit anyone or could have been more perfectly timed to screw with the Leafs.
Yeah, and I mean, just going back with that 22 series against Tampa, like, that was also like that disallowed goal in Game 7 where
Justin Hall was apparently,
I was full on copium that night, but like, I remember tweeting something to the effect that the Leafs were the first team in NHL history to score like as many goals as their opponent and still lose Game 7, and obviously it got a ton of traction. I got a lot of Lightning fans in my ear about that, but I feel like because of something like that, where I convinced myself that the team got jobbed, that the loss then wasn't as bad, because like, they should have had that goal counted, and then therefore, maybe things are differently if that goal. You should have been
sitting in Ottawa surrounded by Sens fans when it was Nick Paul who scored both goals.
Oh, yeah. So I can only imagine. That sounds like a nightmare. But so that, that allows you to kind of like move on from that one, right? And then obviously next year they win. Yep. The first round, which becomes like this huge like celebration, which, in hindsight, obviously it's sad that that's what happens, but it's also important to celebrate that. And then ultimately, to your point, they run into a team that's on the rise. And no, sorry, that's the Bruins year, right?
No, so, I mean, it's 22. They lose to Tampa. 23, they beat Tampa and then lose quickly to Florida. And 24, you get another run with the Bruins.
Yeah, that was 24 with the Bruins. So I mean, that year against, then you convince yourself, well,
Matthews wasn't healthy and Nylander wasn't healthy.
There's always that, right? So you've always got that, but it's just like, that is kind of what you end up doing. Is just like, I think, trying to find ways, to rationalize this as a Leafs fan. Like, even all this summer right now, like, I know we're jumping ahead, but like, I'm just convincing myself like how not having, 102-point player on the team is going to make us better.
Sure. Big on Matthias Michelli. Let's see what's going on here, right? It's I'm curious, it's after that 23 run where you beat Tampa and then lose decisively to the Panthers, where things get all messed up. between Shanahan and Dubas, and apparently they're not communicating well. There's been talk that there was a bit of a power play by Dubas trying to go around Shanny to the board, and do I want to continue doing this? And by the time he comes back, Shanny's decided, I don't want you back. Do you think that was the right move? Would you have let Dubas walk at that point, or do you think it's built under his template? He should have been allowed to carry it on, or was it time for change there, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think by that point for me, like, again, I was a big Dubas booster through his time here. Like,
same.
I'll be lying if, I have the receipts that, like, I didn't, celebrate a lot of the moves that he'd made. But I think by that point, I was also quite fine with that decision. And I mean, ultimately, in the end of the day, you talk about whether or not there's interference from ownership or interference from Shanahan. But, like, at the end of the day, Shanahan is still, the one, taking the directives from, the group that signs everybody's checks. And so on some level, if that's what's starting to happen in your workplace, regardless of whether it's for the Toronto Maple Leafs or wherever you work, like, a lot of that stuff is not, tenable. Right. And so I think a change probably had to be made in order to kind of continue on with the direction that the team was going in. I got to be honest with you, man. I felt like he veered away from his own vision. I don't know if it was under the instruction from Shannon, and I should be clear, I don't know if his vision would have worked, right? Like, at first, it was all skill up and down the Andreas Janssen and Kasperi Kapanen, and like 3 lines deep of just go, 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 go. A lot of speed, a lot of whatever. And look, they lost to the Bruins a couple times doing that, and it wasn't really panning out. And then all of a sudden, we start doing the Zach Bogosian type stuff, and oh man, like the number we did Thornton, who was far too slow at that. And look, I was excited to see him wear a Leaf jersey, but the excitement wore off pretty fast. Nick Foligno, like that didn't. I wanted that to work so bad, but
100%, man. And it felt like, okay, now we don't really have an identity. You have a lot of this skill kind of up high in your lineup, and then just a bunch of kind of slower, your bottom 6 type Brian Burke configuration, but you don't have enough cap space left to be good at that stuff, to have top end guys in those positions. And it sort of stayed that way for a long time. When I talk about the cap freezing and how committed they already were, there was never any punch in the bottom 6 after that. And it just sort of felt like whatever Dubas was building, and I'm not trying to let him off the hook, but he went away from it. Like this new skill run and gun thing that looked like it had a chance in the kind of late 2010s to be catching hold in a few different places across the league. He, lost a couple of times, and he's got Mike Babcock saying, that's not the way I want to do things. And all of a sudden, we're just like everybody else. Like with less, I don't know what you'd call it, less name brand bottom 6 than the teams you're going against.
Yeah, no, I feel like at some point it started to seem like it was not the plan, and whoever's plan it was, whether him deviating from his own plan or that was he had a change of heart. But I just feel like at some point there was a growing realization that maybe this is just not going to work, right? And I mean, and that's the reality. I think for a lot of these teams, but I think certainly that's roughly around the time when you start to think that, like, and you see what other teams, not necessarily with the same talent, but I mean, there's always these teams where, like, they've got all the talent in the rebuild, but like the hardest part is that, like, it's not all going to click. It's not all going to work the way that you think. And all these pieces you've been amassing and all this draft capital you have, like, there's never a guarantee that they're all going to come together and gel at the right moment or be healthy at the right time. And, at some point, it's almost like you just got to cut your losses and just say, like, we got to go in a different direction, because clearly what we've done for the last, 5 years up until that point was just not getting the job done for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And you just kind of need that new perspective, that new direction to try something else, which, and then we try something else and that doesn't necessarily work either. No. And so here we are again, evaluating what happens now. Again, it is a bit of a new era, as you alluded to earlier, with like new coach, new GM, some new faces, some longstanding faces gone. So, it's going to be interesting. I think this is going to be a really, really interesting season. I don't know how I feel about it at this point. Like, it's a mixture of emotions where despite still having the players that we have, like the confidence isn't there,
Right.
the expectations aren't there, but I know that could change, after opening night. So
Sure, yeah. Like right now, we don't know, was this change for the sake of change, or will this be a better mix, a better mesh? Like, we got to find out. When you look at some of these different losses, and I remember one of the 2 Game 7s against Boston, either 18 or 19, we were leading going into the third and got the doors blown off in the third period. In the Columbus series, certainly, like, I think it was Game 4 when we were supposed to lose. Like, we were down 3-0, and they come
back,
storming back and win in overtime, and then get basically nothing happen in Game 5. Yeah, get shut out. In 21 against Montreal, the meltdown is happening in real time in Game 7. And look, I don't know whether this is fair or not, and he's always kind of been the whipping boy, but the lasting memory for me of that one is Mitch lobbing the puck over the glass in his own end, and just wondering, are you going to ever be able to handle this? When you look at some of these, and look, we can talk about the Bostons and the Tampas and there's lots of losses to talk about. When you look at the way this team kept going down, do you put it more on the way the team was constructed in terms of the components that it had, or is there something uniquely inside this group of star forwards that were supposed to push you forward that either weren't capable or, weren't capable together? Like, the example I always use is, if I'm in the water and I feel like I'm drowning and you feel like you're drowning and we grab each other, we're going to drown. Like, we need some sort of strong. Was it that? Is there something in this group that mentally couldn't get it done, or was the team not constructed well enough for them to really have a great shot at doing that?
I mean, have we ruled out that the franchise is just haunted? It's cursed. I mean, that's what I always go back to. But I mean, in reality, like, I think we can pick apart those losses, and I think there's certain things. I mean, I think of that Montreal series, and the one thing I always think about is like Galchenyuk making what is arguably the most ill-advised cross-ice pass of his career.
Maybe the other thing we shouldn't have ruled out is him being a sleeper cell. He had come from Montreal and Ottawa to play on our team.
So, like, there's things like that. But I mean, ultimately, I think it's just like, it's so hard to diagnose, right? Because like, it's like you want to say it's just this group, didn't work together, right? And I think that's fair, because like, I think of my own role, like, as an administrator, and like, you build a team, and my team doesn't play hockey, but like, the team has to work together. They all have to be committed to the same mission, and they have to, I think, work for each other. And I think, and I don't know the inner workings of what the locker room looked like, but I think we can speculate on what we've heard in the media and, like, certain players' camps and what they wanted and what they were, advocating that they should be getting in terms of salary.
We got in that Amazon Prime series, Willie bipping at Mitch and whatever. Stop fucking crying, bro. And
it's not junior, and like, lobbying for power play time and all these things. But like, so part of me just thinks that, like, yes, these could be like a conglomerate of very talented and highly skilled players, but like, for whatever reason, they as a collective just do not work together. And that's not taking anything away from their talent, and it's not to say that they don't have the mental fortitude to win or that they don't want to win, but it's like, the more you look at them and the more you look at other teams, you just think that like, something is missing from my group. And I know that I can't go out and just grab that thing and drop it in, and that's going to solve this problem, because if we could do that, we would have done it.
Right.
But it's just like, you can't help but think that something is just like, something's not right. And, and I'm not talking about like the injuries that happen in the playoffs, and like not having a healthy Austin Matthews for a lot of these runs is certainly like not advantageous. But it's more of just like, you just don't, there's a spark that's not there. And whether or not that spark comes to life now, or there's something, we find that the group that we have now is not going to work together. Like, that's a reality that I'm like terrified for. But there's just something where I think we all got to the point, at least me, I've got to the point where it did not work. And like, to run it back again, and I know that, you're going to say, how you're going to place all those points. And like, Mitch is like he's a unicorn.
Player. He's incredibly talented. And lots of people are saying, like, just watch, he's going to go to Vegas. And he probably will. Like, he's a really good player, and that's a really good team. And he doesn't have to, I'm with you, man. I think all of these guys are incredibly talented, but as a group, it just didn't come together. Right?
Yeah, and I think the thing that I was thinking about as well is that he's highly talented and he's super skilled, but like I think what's also missing and what was missing from that group was like the game breaker. I guess like effect, like as great as Mitch is, and like, you know, his 102 points was like the 5th most in NHL last year. But like, I've never really felt like he's broken a game open.
Right.
You've seen Matthews break a game open when he's fully healthy, and like how important that is, and he even did that like once in this most recent playoff run. You know, which is ultimately what we needed to see from him.
Yep.
But it's like,
and you've seen Willie do it. Like,
yeah, you've seen Willie do it, and you've seen like other guys do it. But then you think of like what Mitch, I guess, wanted from a, you know, a contract perspective. And then you see what other players are doing in and around that ballpark, and you see, you know, what their playoff points per game is. And it's like, he's not in that same echelon. He might be there when it comes to like, he's in and around that 100 to 120 points every year, but like, he's not getting like 1.56 points per game like McDavid is, right? He's not like doing these things.
If you want to be paid like Draisaitl or McKinnon, you need to do Draisaitl, McKinnon things in the playoffs, right? Like
you need to be able to be a game breaker, and I think that's what is what's been missing, right? And I think if they can find that, and if you've got a healthy Matthews or you've got other players that are able to come in and have, I mean, Matthew Nice for me is like, that's a guy that I get excited about still watching him play and what he does in the playoffs. And it's like, that is a guy where I think he has that dog in him. Again, I know I'm probably dating myself by using terms that are, you know, too young for me to say like with a serious face, but he's somebody where I see like that's the piece that we need, right? And as he evolves and grows and gets more effective and is more comfortable, like I hope that is what we get from him, and that's what the team needs, right? But it's just like,
well, when you look at Mitch and everything he did, like there is no doubt the Leafs will miss him. The things he did on the power play, like to get you to the playoffs, and like his penalty kill minutes, and frankly, they've slotted him in on the blue line in rare occasions when they've needed him to for shifts here and there. He is a very talented player, but the things he does don't always translate well to the playoffs. And I'm going to say this, and it's going to come off in a way I don't mean it, but he's kind of a perimeter player. And I don't mean that in sort of like in kind of that denigrating, soft way, but he kind of stays outside and makes these sweet passes. But once in the playoffs, everybody is just collapsed to the net and whatever. Like those passes aren't there, and he's not going to drive to the net with it. Where you've seen Willie, for people, whether you love him or hate him, like he'll get a puck kind of up near the point, and if he doesn't see an open, like he just skates hard through the circle and goes to the net. And you know, we'll see whether they're going to be. I think through the regular season, you're going to see they're not as good, but that doesn't mean they can't find a new identity and guys step into different roles. And I sort of was hoping to see them do something a little more impactful with the cap space they had. There wasn't a lot out there in free agency, but they have spent a lot of it now. I don't know. We'll see. I think this is the other crazy thing, but that you have to say is that until Connor McDavid signs his extension, the Leafs need to remain flexible. And whatever that sounds like to you Sens fans, I know there's a lot of you who listen to this show, fine, but you would be irresponsible to lock yourself out of that conversation until he signs his extension. I don't know, man. When I look at the era that this was, I'm interested in how you would frame that kind of time frame from the start of the 16-17 season to today, where Mitch is now gone and Tavares' contract has played out and he's got a new one. He's stuck around on a hometown discount. Was it a, flaming wreckage of a failure? Was it a success? Like, we are talking about a very good team for a very long time, and the franchise was a mess before Shanny and before this group. And for whatever you think of Babcock, he came in and helped turn some things around. You have become a destination for more free agents. The team does make, going down to the arena more often than not fun, as long as you don't go for a Game 7. How do you sort of characterize this last however many years? I guess it's been 9 years now.
It's like almost like I want to say like a a renaissance failure. Because it's rejuvenated the franchise in many respects, and I think it's rejuvenated the fan base, and I think the way that we talk and think about the team. But ultimately, any team that doesn't win the Stanley Cup, or at least come very close to the Stanley Cup, objectively did not achieve its goal for that season, right?
This is such loser talk, but give me 2 Final Fours in this time frame, and I'm calling it.
We're having a different conversation,
success.
right?
The group just couldn't get over the hump, but this was successful, clearly, and they didn't even give us that.
I don't think they blew up on the launch pad, so to speak, but I feel like it was a failure to launch. There was a lot of great.
There's a reference you and I are more age appropriate to be making.
Yeah. So I feel like that's kind of where I view it as, right? It was there. Everything was there where we assumed everything was there, and they just couldn't pull the trigger. They couldn't launch. There was some, flashes of brilliance. We got over that first round, but ultimately they just didn't get it done, right? And for whatever reason, they didn't get it done. And so you look back fondly on this era because again, we've talked about how Tavares coming in and all the great things that these players have done and all the great things that Mitch Marner has done. But ultimately it's just, it just didn't work. And I mean, we'll be talking about this for years as to why it didn't work, because hopefully we get to a point where it does work. And then we can say, reverse engineer why it didn't work previously. But it's one of those things where, it's just it was an unprecedented time to be a Leafs fan. And it just, being a Leafs fan, I guess it makes a lot of sense that it didn't work. But I'm still convinced that, with whatever was going on with Mitch and, obviously being a new father, not wanting to move your family before the deadline, I totally understand and I sympathize with. But I think it seemed like from what we've been hearing that he was not wanting to stay long-term regardless of when this, his family life was changing. I think
they got locked in at that Treliving mess, right? When Dubas left, Treliving comes in. I know, I've been frustrated about that and said, you know what? Figure it out. You got out the rest of your front office and Shanahan is there. That was the time to trade him before the move kicks in. But at the same time, I do understand that you've hired a new GM and you don't want to, be trampling all over him in the first 3 weeks. But that was your moment to really change things, and you weren't able to do it for all kinds of different reasons.
Yeah, and my thing is that in sports or in business, there is addition by subtraction is a real thing. I've experienced it in my own teams where you lose a body, but by losing that person and some of the toxicity that either they created or was created by them being a part of that group. That still allows the team to be productive, even if you're down 102-point player.
Certainly.
Now, the caveat is obviously you're not going to replace that in the regular season, and they're probably going to take a tumble. But I'd like to think, and again, maybe this is me just trying to cope with what is, losing a, potential franchise player or has been a franchise player, is that maybe now that this is gone and we finally closed the book on this and we're on to the next chapter, that will invigorate the room and maybe that spark will come back or will appear. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is that this, they're not going to replace him. I'm not convincing myself that the team is on paper better off by not having his 75 assists as 102 points. But I think maybe within the room and within just turning the page and moving on, they're better in that regard. Maybe that will pay dividends somehow.
I don't want to keep you here all day, but one last thing I did want to kind of run by you. Do you give any oxygen to this? It's too hard to win in Canada, and by extension, even harder to win in Toronto, with the media and the social media and the attention that goes into it. Do you have time for that discussion, or is that just noise that fans and frankly media like to talk about?
Yeah, I don't have any time for that. I feel like that is a media construct, because I think the thing that we all have to remember, and I think maybe sometimes the media forgets, is that these are elite athletes who've been training their entire lives to have these big moments. And if they don't want to play in a market because they don't want to have to deal with the pressure to potentially be, the GOAT or the savior in those big game moments, and that's clearly not a player that you would want anyway.
Right.
And so I had a conversation with Russ Courtnall this summer, humble brag for a different
Nice.
project. And he was somebody who played, for both the Canadians and the Leafs. And
Yep.
I'd asked him this question, like chiefly because of this whole Marner saga. Like, what do you make of this idea that it's too hard to play in these Canadian markets? And he told me that if he was a GM of either of those teams and a player said to him that he didn't want to play in, Toronto or Montreal because of the media, he would hang up on them. And so like and I agree. Like, I think that I think sometimes like to inject this narrative into these players, and that's why they didn't want to stay here. But I think if you were to talk to these players and get an honest response, they've been training and waiting for these moments their entire lives. Yes, there's obviously heightened media presence in some of these cities, but ultimately just you got to figure out a way to not get absorbed into it and just ultimately focus on what your job is and what the team pays you for, and know that if you're the one that gets this team over the hump, like, you'll be celebrated for the rest of your life. They'll have streets named after you. You'll be an ambassador. You'll have anything you want to do. You'll never have to buy a drink anywhere.
Right. And we've seen it, right? Like, this isn't this across sports, and it doesn't mean you have to win a championship every year, but the Yankees are under pressure and they are successful. The Dodgers are covered tightly. The Lakers, like, across across sports, man, like, big markets are supposed to draw the big stars who want the bright spotlight and be successful with it. So I really, and quite frankly, I think the Leafs have done quite a bit to make these guys comfortable. They aren't constantly thrown out after bad games to answer for things. Sometimes that's annoying to me, but I don't think the Toronto media is over the top mean. I'm with you, man. Like, I think it's odd, and every year that goes by that a Canadian team doesn't win the cup, I do allow myself to at least explore the possibility that it's harder in Canada than it is in other places. But look, Edmonton's made it to the final twice and a couple of different bounces here and there, and we're not having that conversation anymore, right? Same with the Flames in 2004, the Oilers in 2006. Like, no, these aren't Toronto and Montreal, but a couple bounces, like, we're like, the streak thing isn't even a conversation, I guess, is my point. And I think that's loser talk to say that it's too hard in Toronto. Well, then go play somewhere else.
Yeah. Completely agree.
Yeah. Well, we should wind this down here a little bit. You've sort of alluded to it a couple times, but as camp opens, what will you be looking at? Do you think that there is a possibility here that, I doubt that this is now a division-winning team, but I also doubt quite heavily that this is a team that falls out of the playoffs. What sort of would you deem to be reasonable expectations? And in the early part of the preseason and the regular season, what will you be keeping an eye on to give us what, like, the conversation that always makes me the craziest is, I'm not watching again until the playoffs. Like, the regular season doesn't matter. And I'm like, that's cool. You do you, but I actually like hockey. Like, I want to watch my team. And so when I kind of, to circle back to a couple questions ago, the idea of, was this successful in terms of winning a championship? No, but I watched 10 years of top line Nicholas Hagman or P.A. Parento or whatever, and they lost all the time, and it wasn't enjoyable. And for the last 9 years, more nights than not, they won, or at least were in it, or you felt like one of your game breakers would get you back into it, and that was more enjoyable to watch. So in that, small way, in terms of watching all year, this was a success in that regard. In terms of making it entertaining for your fans, what will you be looking at to entertain you here in the early part of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I'm definitely not one of those fans that's going to, wait out until the playoffs. I think it's fair to assume that they're not going to be as strong in the division as they were previously. That being said, like, my expectation is still that they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're necessarily, in position to win the division by some of the changes that have happened. But, like, I think it would be a failure for them not to get into the playoffs this year. Like, I think everyone would be very shocked by that.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's always balancing that it is a long regular season, but, like, so not getting too high and not getting too low as things inevitably unfold, especially with some new, pieces coming in and adjusting to, this new era. So I think it's not getting too worked up over, like, losses or getting too high on the supply when, things are going right. I think for me, like, I am quite interested in what Michelli, our new Italian Finlander, does, on this team. I'm just curious to see like what the effect will be of him playing with some of those top line players, and what that could do for his numbers.
And a lot of people say like that is Mitch very light, like Mitch light, but defensively responsible. 60-point guy, pass first guy. Like, is he Mitch? No, but you were never getting another Mitch, and this one's costing you like $3 million as opposed to 13. Drop him in there and see how he looks, right? I'm intrigued by this too.
Yeah, no. So I mean, that being said, who knows what my thoughts will be like after. I think I truthfully don't watch preseason. Like I'll catch up on what I read online, but like I typically won't watch this with the time of the year. There's other stuff going on, but I'm very curious. It is a very different mindset going into this year than in previous years, but I'm excited.
New chapter,
to see what
new era,
transpires.
nothing, just another year. Like, how would you phrase it?
I think it is a new era.
Okay.
A new sorry, not a new era. It's a new chapter within what is still the era that we're living in, right? And so,
the Austin Matthews era.
Yeah, we're still in there. So like again, there's Taylor Swift's got a new era coming. This is I don't think this is that same thing, but I think we're I'm cautiously excited, but again, talk to me in October, and we'll see what I'm saying at that point.
Mike, I appreciate you making some time in late August to come in and rehash some old wounds. And
it's therapeutic.
It's an interesting time for sure, and as you pointed out a little while ago, we will be looking back on this era of the Leafs for a while. I don't know why I use the term era. It's hard not to use, right?
Yeah.
I'm limited with my vocabulary. We'll see what happens, but I hope you'll come back in October, talk to us more about the book, which I believe you said is coming out on the 21st. Is that right?
Yep, you got it.
Bruins 365 by Mike Commito. If you haven't had a chance to check out the other ones, a couple of Hockey 365s, Leafs 365, Habs 365, all of them awesome. All of them quick little tidbits, a page or two on a different day in history throughout the league, throughout the Leafs, throughout the Habs, and now throughout the Bruins. We'll look forward to talking to you again about all of that in October, Mike, but in the meantime, thanks so much for doing this, man, and enjoy what little is left of our summer here.
My pleasure, Matty. Yeah, thanks again, and you as well. Enjoy the time at the cottage, and we'll chat soon.
Okay, there goes Mike. Always fun talking to that guy. I appreciate his ability to kind of weave in and out of his own fandom scarring that so many of us Leaf fans have endured since 2016, but also being able to zoom out and keep a rational eye on it, and that's how you are able to put together a successful franchise of books like these, the Hockey 365 series. And we will look forward to having him back on in October to talk specifically about the Bruins one. We will not allow any Leaf mentions during that show, hopefully. As I said off the top, don't forget on Monday, we'll skip the news thing and we'll go right to another edition of the TCA Summer Sessions, checking in with the voice of the Ottawa Senators, Dean Brown. That'll be great. And then midweek, where we would normally do the summer sessions, we'll do the news thing with Steve Bunda. Just availability of the guests and timing-wise, it's going to shake out better next week to kind of do the flip, the switcheroo that I referred to off the top. So stay tuned for all of that. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're hearing us. And that's where we will wind this one down. Thank you so much for listening. Always appreciate you checking out the show. My name is Matt Robinson, and we'll catch you next time.
TCA Summer Session.